Hello, this is the second video in our LifeApe Scene Builder series. Scene Builder is a free application that enables you to quickly build both simple and advanced animatronics applications. In this video, we'll show you how to build multiple timelines, trigger them, and deploy to an extreme life controller. So let's get started. In this demonstration, we're going to create animation for 3 timelines, though Scene Builder allows up to 16 timelines to be created for each scene. The first timeline will contain our background or ambient animation, and then we will build 2 different timelines to provide our scare or startle effect. Later, we'll show you how you can use the Scene tab to randomly choose one of the scare timelines when the prop is activated by a trigger.
So you've already seen how to create timelines, and that was covered in the first video. So we'll go a little bit faster this time. As we did in the first video, I'm going to go ahead and start by renaming timeline 1 as ambient. This time I'm going to take an audio track and I'm going to drag that onto the timeline. And I'm going to go browse for an MP3 file, and I've already created a handful for this demonstration. I'll select the background MP3. LifeApe Scene Builder allows you to independently adjust the volume level for each audio track for each timeline. So in this case, I'll go ahead and I'll make this one 60%. And then I'm going to double click on one of the digital outputs, as we're going to control a light source as well. So I will just call this light source. The last thing I'm going to do is, since I feel like this audio track is a little bit too long for the demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and shorten the timeline duration. And we'll just make this, 12 seconds. And I'm just going to create a simple little flashing pattern for the light source while the ambient music is playing. Now we'll create a timeline that's very similar to what we did with the ambient timeline. This time I'll just go ahead and double click the audio, and I will select, we'll throw Godzilla on there. And I'm going to make this one a little bit louder for the startle effect. So I'll put that at, say, 83%. Hit OK. And again, I'm going to control the light source yet again. I'm going to make the timeline pretty short. So we'll make this one, say 3 seconds. And the light source, as I'm zooming way in here, we'll have it flash, every 200 milliseconds a couple times, and then basically be off for the rest of the timeline. So we'll call that OK for our first scare track. Okay, and then now very quickly we're going to create another scary track, and I'll add that timeline, rename it, call it Scary 2. Again, I will add an audio item, this time just some random monster sound, and we'll make this one also fairly loud. We'll put him at, say, 90%. And bring over our light source. We'll make him a little longer. We'll make him a 4-second timeline. And we'll go ahead and we'll flash the light source for him, and we'll do that throughout the entire playback of the audio track. Done with that. So now that I've created the timelines, I need to decide how I want them to switch or transition from one to another, and that's where the Scene tab is used. So when I click on the Scene tab, we can see that Scene Builder has already populated the names of our timelines, Ambient, Scary 1, and Scary 2. So the Scene tab allows us to control the sequencing or the transitions of the timelines. So if I double click on the Ambient timeline, we see this dialog box. And within this dialog box, this is where I define the behavior of what happens during this timeline. So let's quickly walk through the different options. We can configure each timeline to loop continuously. We can have it play once and then automatically jump to another timeline, or we can have it jump to another timeline based on a trigger. So let me show you how you would configure the ambient timeline for those different options. By default, we see the play to the end of the timeline, then go to. And within the then go to, we have various options. So after the ambient timeline finishes, we can select to have it jump to the Scary 1 and play that timeline next, Scary 2, or we can also have Scene Builder select a random timeline. And if I select that, then I get to choose which timelines I want Scene Builder to use for the random generator. So for example, if I chose Scary 1 and Scary 2, each time the ambient timeline finishes, randomly either Scary 1 or Scary 2 will next be executed. This is a way to give your effect or prop kind of an interesting feel, because each time that it's activated, you don't know what's going to happen. We can also configure the timeline to loop until a trigger occurs. Since I have random timeline selected, either the Scary 1 timeline will execute or the Scary 2 timeline will execute randomly each time the trigger occurs. We also have a delay factor that we can set, and this will ignore triggers for that amount of time. This can be useful when somebody is continuously activating a prop by standing on a pressure mat or activating a beam sensor, and you don't want the prop to continuously execute. So we're going to go ahead with this for our demonstration. And now we have to set the behavior for our Scary 1 and Scary 2 timelines. So I'll double click on Scary 1, and what I'll have him do is simply execute once, play to the end of the timeline, and then loop back to the ambient. And I'll do the same thing for Scary 2. So now I've set up the sequences for each of my timelines. You'll notice the ambient timeline has a green symbol next to it. What that indicates is when I deploy the project to the StreamLife controller and I cycle power, that's the first timeline that's going to begin executing. So it's going to start with that timeline. So now that we built our scene, we can deploy or download our application to the StreamLife controller, see the animation in action. So I'll come over here, I'll click on the deploy button. When I click on the deploy button, Scene Builder will download or deploy all the audio tracks and animation to the controller and place it in show mode or live mode. This means it will automatically start executing the application anytime it is powered on. The audio tracks can take a few minutes to download, so I'll skip over that for the sake of time. So now that the deploy is finished, I'm going to cycle power on the StreamLife controller, and we can hear the ambient audio play and see the light animation. I have a pressure mat connected to the trigger input. When I activate it, you'll notice either the Scary 1 or the Scary 2 timeline will randomly be chosen to execute. That's the end of the second video in the Scene Builder series. The next video will cover RC servo motor control. Thanks for watching.